Okay, welcome to the House of Love. This is the House of Love on the road, which is very exciting. It's our first time coming on the road to interview somebody, and I am thrilled to be here with Lou Martin down in West Cork. Well, he's just informed me that this is officially, we're in Bandon, so it is the gateway to West Cork.
Exactly.
That's the title they give themselves.
Yes, yes.
So Lou is a channeler, a healer, and a writer extraordinaire, and I came across him online.
Yeah.
And I had the privilege of having an amazing healing session with him, I suppose about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which was quite transformative and really made me think, okay, I've got to meet this guy and you've got to meet this guy. So here I am, sitting on his couch. This is the backdrop I think I was looking at when I was having my healing, possibly.
The gallery.
And now I'm actually sitting here, so it's great. And Clive is here behind the camera. So, you hail from California, and you've ended up here in Bandon, and I know you told us a little bit about that, but I'm going to go back further because I looked on your website and was fascinated. You gave a little short clip about your awakening, so I want to know more.
Sure.
So the first thing I saw was that you sat with Krishnamurti. For those of you who may not know, I suppose Krishnamurti was one of the forefathers of bringing, I suppose, Eastern traditions and Eastern spirituality to the West, and he's probably one of the first known kind of great teachers, writers, gurus.
Yeah.
And you were sitting with him when you were just 16.
Yeah.
So
how did that happen? It was a complete mystery to me. It was, I got invited by a teacher who I wasn't even in his class, and there were 4 of us, and we were I was in high school in Palos Verdes in California. And we went out and we sat with this. We sat in an oak grove, and there were maybe 30 of us in a field there. The thing that stood out the most from the experience was I remember this is a very powerful person that I'm going to get to hear for some reason, and I was waiting for him to appear, and we were all kind of looking for him, and suddenly he was literally just there, and it was like, whoa, how did you pull that one off? So he began, to get my attention that somehow this guy had some very interesting presence. And his, having read his teachings since then, just such a great philosopher, so straight with the medicine, no nonsense, no ego, always diving into the deepest truth. So that was a great inspiration for me at the age of 16. That put me in that direction.
And I'm just thinking some place in you must have been ready for that, because I can't imagine. I was like a cat on a hot tin roof at 16.
Right.
I don't think I could have sat under an oak tree listening to a great teacher. So you were already sort of honed or preened for that meeting, I would imagine.
Sure, I think so. I do, because I grew up with the Beatles, living, breathing their music every day of my life. There was a Beatles cartoon that I saw as a kid, and then we had Hard Day's Night and Help, and I just thought these were the most amazing people in the world, and their music was incredible. So when they made their spiritual journey, to India with Maharaji and all of that, and Within You, Without You, and so many brilliant, spiritual songs in their music, that moved me in that direction as well. So I was open to that. I was reading Hermann Hesse in high school,
Okay, I
brilliant.
read his Buddha. Right? Yeah, that's the only one I've read. But
Right. Siddhartha. Yes.
Siddhartha,
Right. Yeah, so I found his work. Damien was the first one I read by him. And there's a story in there about a young man who is Damien, and he's in the classroom of the person who's narrating the story, and he's in meditation, and a fly crawls across this young boy's face, and he doesn't move, and the other boy is so amazed that he's done that. So kind of like Krishnamurti just appearing out of thin air. Those were little, along with the Beatles and whatnot, those were little droplets showing me that there was a reality beyond what I'd experienced.
Wow, I'm having spiritual envy already.
Oh, well.
Such a thing, does that exist? But anyway, I'm feeling that.
It's there for everyone, these great resources,
So I'm curious now, before we go any further, was there a background in any sort of a church or religion or growing up?
Yes, as I've heard in many groups here in Ireland, I grew up Irish Catholic, the American version of it, which is a much softer. Honestly, it's much less harsh and severe and authoritarian, but it's still the same idea. So I went to church until I was 16. Once again, yeah, and then I decided it didn't suit me any longer, and I told my mother, and she had no problem with that. My mom was the churchgoer, my dad was the atheist. So my mom was the Democrat, my dad was the Republican. They were this contrast. So it was nice to have that freedom to be able to choose.
I was going to say that was wonderful, because I know at 16 I would have been still having to pretend
Sure.
that I was going to church, even though I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful always, actually, for that introduction to spirituality that I did get through Catholicism. In hindsight, even though some of it has been thrown away, but an awful lot of it hasn't. And it was a bit like Bandon. It was a gateway. In.
Brilliant.
So your awakening journey is beginning. You're 16, and then we're going to fast track forward purely because it's the next thing you brought up on your website, and I'm very grateful that you're willing to speak about it. So you said that your father was murdered, and I know nothing about this other than I read that one line, but that there was a gift somewhere in there. But
well, yes, I call it the Hamlet period, my father was a medical doctor, and he was working in a clinic, and someone had been diagnosed as being terminal with cancer, and he had spent time in a mental institute, and he was able in the U.S. to legally buy a rifle, and he asked to see a doctor in this clinic. They showed him my dad, and he pulled the gun out and shot my father straight through the heart, killed him. And the police came. It was a bit of a standoff, and they eventually killed him in the standoff, the man that killed my dad. So it was a big Hamlet period. It was a big shock, and but so just to keep it in perspective here for all of it, that got me like Hamlet, asking, why am I here? What's the purpose of life? Is there life after death? The ghost of my father, etc., all these kinds of things. So actually, it really opened me, after about the age of 30, when all of these things really started to happen to me. I had this Kundalini awakening in meditation at the age of 30, just before I turned 30. And my 20s was reading books, playing guitar, and going in and out of school and smoking a lot of weed.
Okay.
That was how I coped with my experiences up until then. But then when I meditated and had this Kundalini awakening, the energy shot up my spine and out the top of my crown, and I felt this cosmic oneness with all of life, and everything changed for me after that.
Okay, and it's interesting.
How's that for a lead off?
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And because interestingly, we were saying just before we started the interview how grief can be a portal or a gateway to awakening.
Yeah.
So it was, and it's always when you're ready. And I know you touched off that in your book, The Intervention. Your ebook.
The Invitation. That's right, Joe.
What did I say? The Invention.
Intervention. That sounds good.
It is a bit of an intervention.
Okay.
So. But in The Invitation.
It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah. But you did sort of mention that as well. It's only when we're ready. We can't do any piece of work until we give the go ahead.
Right. It's exactly. Well said. It's called The Invitation because that's what I've learned from working with Spirit for 30 years, that they never interfere with our own free will. So the Kundalini awakening, working with spirit guides, meditation, prayer, guided meditation, Abraham, Lazarus, Oren and Da-Ben, Dr. Peebles, many of the guides that I've worked with that are out there for everyone to work with that I recommend to everyone. My analogy is they keep putting the needle back on the song that it makes life meaningful. That there's a purpose to all of this, that you're here to learn something, to awaken, to heal, to remember, however you want to describe it. And so the more we go in that direction, the more those resources begin to show up in our lives.
Okay, so basically when the needle is on the song, we can listen, we can stay in the room and listen to the song, or we can walk out the door. And very often we walk out the door, and then we walk back in the door, and we listen to another bit of the song, or whatever.
Round and round we go.
Yeah.
Our will versus God's will, and the dance about all of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you also got involved in the church I don't know whether it was out in California, but with Michael Beckwith.
Yeah.
Would you tell me a little bit about that? Because I've just come across him on Oprah.
Oh, great.
And, I kind of go, this guy is amazing, and he's really fired up, and,
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know him, Reverend.
Dr. Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, he's the man.
And the Agape Church.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
sure.
enlighten us.
No, you're doing very well. You're doing
Yeah.
very well. So I got to. I'll tell you my Michael Beckwith story. The first time I encountered Michael Beckwith, my lovely girlfriend at the time, Alicia Killebrew, who's also a very good channel and inspired me a lot in this direction. She took me. We went to a hotel in Santa Monica, and they had a big meeting room in the basement, I believe, of the hotel, and there were 400, 500, 600 people in this room. And Reverend Michael comes out, and he's kind of a small man. He's not very tall. He might be about this if I were looking at him face to face. But he comes out, and I'm like, well, the energy in the room is very interesting. This is interesting. So anyway, during his talk, there was etherically, and I have rarely ever have seen anything like this, there was a purple light that literally exploded above his head in my vision when I heard him talk, and I went, oh my God, who is this? So long story short, I studied with him the practitioner program, which is like their spiritual counselor program, and it's the first part of studying to become a minister, which I didn't choose to do there. But I've been a part of that church off and on for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, and I would imagine it strikes me as being just like an incredible energy to be around and
truly
space to be in.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear how small. I knew he was quite small, but he's a huge presence.
Oh, exactly.
Incredible presence on camera. Anyway.
Oh yeah. No, he lives the truth 100%, and he is a brilliant teacher. One of my spirit guides that I've worked with many times is a gentleman named Dr. Peebles, which I can talk about here in a second. But when I was asking Dr. Peebles about Agape and Michael Beckwith years ago, he said, this is going to become a global movement of spiritual awakening. And it's well on its way to being that. Yeah. The other thing I want to say is Ricky Byers, who Michael and she were married there for quite a while. They've since taken a step back from that. But they do this choir together, and the music that they've created together is as inspiring as anything I've ever heard. And I actually was in the choir for a year. So that was great fun.
Sounds
wonderful. Yeah, but they're a tremendous vision of service and spiritual responsibility in terms of empowering and helping people to learn the things that you and I are talking about.
Okay, and you trained with him, so that's amazing. And you're probably one of the few that has trained with him that's here resident in Ireland, I would imagine.
I would think
not
so.
The only one.
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so lucky us.
Well, thank you.
So I know you told us a little bit, you don't have to go into the details of the story, but how come you're here?
Well,
what do you do in Ireland?
I mean, I'm very proud of my Irish heritage, coming from the States, born, in the U.S., and I came through, having a relationship with a lovely lady in Austria for a while. That we came here, and we kind of parted our ways in County Clare there, 8 or 9 years ago, and I just decided that I wanted to try to stay here. So it's been a pilgrimage, really. About the culture, the spirituality, the people. I really love it and respect it enormously, and I think it's got a lot to share with the world. So I'm very, very glad to be here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I came across, as I shared earlier, you on Facebook, and I know you do a beautiful morning program where you do prayers and meditation with people.
Thank you.
And I'm curious as to how have people, and having lived here for 9 years as well, so how have they responded to, let's call it, number one, the fact that you're from California, but that very soft and different approach to spirituality than people here. Because I know even from teaching Kundalini Yoga, that some people, they love coming, they love what happens, but they don't really want to know the details of what's really happening. In my experience of teaching, they just want to kind of come to the class, and that's great. And you get the odd one who's really into the trip of the whole thing. But a lot of them are just, this feels lovely,
Well, it is quite new. No, that's very well said, my friend. It is quite new to most people, particularly the channeling that I do and have done in groups here for years. About 5 years ago, I shifted from doing things in person primarily to doing things online primarily. So I'm not limited any longer by just just my connection to Ireland geographically. Excuse me. But as we were talking before, there's a sense of anxiety in the world, and there's a sense of mystery about what is happening and how can we respond to what's happening and all of that. So, I mean, I feel really, truly privileged that for 30 years I've known that there is help for all of us, guidance spiritually, and that there is a plan, a program, an agenda, however you want to put it, and that this is something that humanity has been preparing for thousands and thousands of years, and we are living in the time when this is really starting to become real. So those of us that feel called in any way to be of service, to give and receive inspiration, or to find and follow our hearts, that's what Spirit's really asking for people to learn to do, to turn off the mind a little bit and come back to our power and our presence of love inside of us.
Yeah, two things have come to mind there. Number one, you mentioned anxiety. And I know when we were doing our Kundalini training, one of the things that Yogi Bhajan was speaking about was when we would move into the Aquarian age, that anxiety was going to be the prime, mental health was going to be the primary problem as opposed to physical stuff.
Yeah.
And he said people will literally stop you on the street. They're going to want what you have. They're going to need what you have, and you must keep passing on these teachings or other people's teachings, whatever, but just that you need to have that presence about you.
Sure.
And I know recently I was going through the shopping centre in Limerick, and 2 people stopped me.
Right.
In anxiety and crying and asking for something.
Really?
Yeah. It
just
was
because
incredible.
you were lit up and...
Just because I was... I don't know whatever was moving through me.
Right.
But
yes.
personally, I didn't feel I was doing anything except for going about my shopping.
Yeah.
But it's just that, we're all aware now that we are in these times where things have, speeded up, and we're a little bit stressed, and, everything, there's so many demands. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that there's so many, the phone, there's the internet, there's Facebook, there's blah, 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 there's all these kind of things pulling you in all sorts of directions.
Distractions.
Distractions. Yeah, so many distractions.
Yeah.
And I loved, you touched on it there, and in your book where you talk about a better way. And that we know that's that really heart-centered, that place, and that you, as you say, for 30 years you've known this, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't know. I haven't known it for 30. I think I've known it, but I haven't wanted to explore it. Put it that way.
Sure.
But now starting to know. But I love the simplicity of a better way. So it doesn't mean that you have to jump this kind of, way up here suddenly.
Right.
That, one step is a better way.
Yeah. One step at a time is the only way change happens.
And can you talk a little bit about that, even that expression that you used of, just about doing things a little bit better than you were before, or a little bit differently?
Sure thing, sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of this is honestly inspired by Abraham, and Esther Hicks, who definitely are teachers that people want to know about on this path.
Clive's a big fan.
Oh, very good,
Has
brilliant.
Been for quite some time, yeah.
Yeah, and they're saying, and so my guides and Abraham and Lazarus, essentially everyone's giving us the same message, which you said very beautifully, which is, let me just add to that. My guides put it this way: you're safe, loved, and supported. And the way to know that is to listen to, trust, and follow your inner guidance. And the way to do that is to go into peace as often and as deeply as possible. Okay. And peace is the presence of infinite possibilities.
Okay. I'm just thinking, in A Course in Miracles, is that when they talk about the holy instant? Where we just pause. Yeah. Sort of in our Christ consciousness, or in our heart, or whatever is the word that you choose.
Yes, actually Michael Beckwith would say the transformational moment.
Okay.
There you go.
Transformational moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be whole is to be holy. This is either from the Course or my guides or just my own thoughts, But it is to know that we're not separate, we're not divided, we're not, less than or better than or different from. We're just unique in our own way. Mm-hmm. And so the heart knows what the mind struggles to believe is the mantra from my guides. And when I remember that and practice that, then I can come back to that place of listening, trusting, and following. But if I'm too distracted by the external, then I'm pulled out of that center, And see, drama does that. That's why everyone is so anxious, because...
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think when you say the word drama, and
Right.
exactly how you say it,
Right.
and I just remember during my interview, and you know,
Right.
at one point, or not my interview, my
Our
session
session,
with
either
you,
way,
my
yeah.
session with
Yeah.
you, and you know, being sort of, at some point you said to me, but you're too in the drama, Mia, and I was like, you know, there was a little part of me going, F you.
Right, exactly.
I know this
Exactly.
stuff.
Don't you tell my ego I'm in drama. Yes.
But of course,
Believe me, I've got one too. Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
you were so right. You know, that's exactly where I was gone, and off into those distractions and being pulled away. And there's another quote from your piece, The Invitation, where
Yeah.
you say, you know, that, you know, our fear completely blocks our consciousness.
Right,
We
right.
think our fear is
Right.
who we are, you know, and again, out of the heart, straight into the mind. And that was another thing you said to me, you know, you're too in your head, my dear. And
Yeah.
this is when the FU was getting louder
Sure.
in my
Sure.
in
Yeah, I have
my
to say
head.
these things with a good sense of humor. Otherwise, people throw things.
No,
Yeah.
I know, and they were. They did land. They did
Yeah,
land
yeah.
where they were supposed to land. And
Yeah.
sometimes we call for teachers like that, and that's how we need to hear it.
Sure.
You know, the soft,
Yeah.
the pure soft approach doesn't always work.
Well,
So-
yeah.
It was nicely put.
Thank you. No, you took it well. I mean, that. See, this is why it's an invitation, because Spirit, through me, through you, through Clive, through anyone, it's not going to impose anything upon us. If we don't come to it with our hearts open in a state of humility and willingness, then no healing or awakening can take place, because we're too fearfully attached to the illusions of separation, which really is the mindset of the world. It's the default place of consciousness. But the good news is, if we do have a spiritual practice, meditation, journaling, affirmations or affirmative prayer, and finding and following any inspiration, those are the 4 pillars from my guides, then it begins to give us more access to those inner resources, to that inner wisdom. Yeah?
Yeah, and that's what I suppose I'm really seeing, is when you find yourself, reaching out to somebody like Lou, it's to really trust then that you are ready. There's no going back. You don't go back to the old ways of being, or you can, but it's when you hear it, it's like, okay, come on, go for it, take that step, move into this next place in your life.
Right.
Really go there.
Yeah. It's about trusting.
It's about trust.
Yeah, and my guides say trust is everything.
Yeah.
And you see what we trust, who we trust, how deeply we trust, and what we do with that trust. That's pretty much the doorway through which we get to walk into the future, or we stay stuck in the past.
Just look around, and you will see it's all around. It's all around you. The love that you need. Every breath that you take, you're lying in the arms of love.
Okay, so Lou, one of my favourite subjects, and something that I have given talks and workshops on, and that it's a big part of your book, The Invitation, and I really want you to share your views and your feelings around forgiveness with our audience today, because it's for me, it's the bottom line. It's the only way forward. But people have all sorts of misconceptions and misunderstandings about forgiveness, and for me the biggest one that it's about letting somebody off the hook, or that's what I hear.
Sure. We always think it's about the other person.
We always think it's about the other person.
We're perfect. They're the problem.
Yeah.
If they just changed, then we'd be okay.
Yeah, and what they did to me, and what happened.
Right.
So can you just share a little bit about how you feel about forgiveness? And,
Yeah.
And see where we match up.
Sure thing. With great joy. Absolutely. Well, we're both students of the Course in Miracles, which is truly, whatever it is, 1,000 pages basically about forgiveness.
A big book.
Yeah, big old, 3 books in one big old book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is it. People, this is from my guides, and it's in the book. 3 common misunderstandings about forgiveness. The first one is, if we forgive someone else, we're saying that what they did is okay. No, it doesn't do that. If we forgive someone else, we're taking their power away because we're saying what they did I have some control over, so I'm taking my power back from them. No, you can't take anyone else's power from them. The third part is if I forgive them, then I'm asking for this to happen again. No, it doesn't work that way. Those are all fallacies. What forgiveness does is it helps us to take our part of the drama and bring it back into our own heart, and to take responsibility for our part of what we've invited or allowed into our experience. And otherwise, if we do not forgive, then we're always looking over our shoulder, carrying the past with us, afraid that we're somehow going to invite a repeat of that abuse or mistreatment or disrespect or whatever it was. So what forgiveness does is it cuts energetically with love the cord of the pain and the fear and the judgment. And it says, none of that is important to me at this point. I've paid my price, they've paid their price, whatever it was, it's done. I created this, allowed this, invited this. I forgive myself for that. I'm taking my power back from that. And as I do that, I get to see who was in this with me from a place of love and compassion rather than blame and judgment.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I mean, I know my session with you was so freeing for me in that, and I have done a lot of work around forgiveness and teaching forgiveness and similar views, and I'll share a little bit in a minute from where the standpoint from where I have thought. But, I remember in the session with you saying to you that, I own my own part in all of this, and, and you saying, yes, dear, but you also are owning the other person's part.
Right.
And that, in a way, and I'm kind of seeing into it even more there, because you're carrying their part around with you as well. And it's I had moved to the place where I kind of thought, that I'm taking responsibility, and that means everything should be okay, without realizing that, I was excusing everything, which is grainy in there somewhere, isn't it? Well,
yeah, because it's really not for us to judge another person.
No, but it's also not to kind of, whether we're judging good or bad, is to say, this is part of my journey, and this, and I asked for this to happen,
right.
and especially when it's this kind of a serious, I suppose, it was a serious interruption in your life. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
But I just really got that kind of clarity that forgiveness has nothing to do with that. That's that person's journey with their stuff.
That's right.
That it's just all about you and your healing and your wellness and your moving on.
Yes.
And as you say, just that kind of snipping of that cord and holding the other person in love.
Yes.
But not necessarily going, that was all fine, and you should go and hurt someone else in the same way, or you're not condoning anything.
Right. That's brilliant. Let me tell you, I did a session recently with a woman who has an ex-partner who is basically stalking her. They have a child together, and it's not terrible, but it's not easy either. And when I mentioned the word forgiveness to her in this context, she just melted. She just softened immediately. And I was like, you can forgive yourself for creating your part in creating this situation. And it was like you said, wow,
your
I don't
part
have...
only.
Yes, exactly. Because you see, no one can take your power from you. You can only give it away, and no one can give you your freedom. You must take it because it's yours. This is from my guides. So what does that mean? It means that as I listen to, trust, and follow my inner guidance, as I take time and make space for peace as often and as deeply as possible every day, then I'm safe again to love, to heal, to release, to surrender, to see differently, to see with new eyes, all of that. My agenda, my hidden agenda, whatever, that allowed, invited, attracted this situation into my life without me judging or blaming the other person and making them the reason why I'm not happy. So it cuts that energy. And I saw her a week later after the session. We came on and did some more work together. I literally did not recognize her. She had to tell me her name, and I was like, my God, you look like a new person. So that is truly the power of forgiveness, because it's about loving ourselves. We can't give to another what we withhold from ourselves.
And I know you asked me during our session a wonderful question, which I have asked so many people since.
Okay.
I'm
good.
using this over and over
great.
again. And particularly I haven't asked any men, but I've asked because it's a question for women, I believe.
All right.
But you had posed to me about if I was all dressed up and in a pair of high heels,
Right.
and toenails painted and looking
Yes.
fab, and standing at a bar at a wedding with my glass of champagne, and some big drunk guy stood on my toes.
Right.
And
Right.
what was the first thing I would say? And I had to be really I didn't want to give you the answer that came straight to mind, because I was saying, really? But my answer was, I'm sorry.
Right.
And I straight away I realized.
You walked right into my trap. Yeah.
I walked straight in.
Yeah.
And it was like seeing, oh yeah, I do. I take responsibility for everything.
Right.
That, that happens literally. Like,
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
And I suddenly saw, oh my God, that's not a powerful reaction. That's not
No.
a divine feminine reaction.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
That's like kind of, little mousy kind of woman in the corner. Oh, it's okay, you can do what you
Yes,
want. But
yes.
I would walk away with a resentment, and in my mind I would be saying, how dare you stand on my toes, or whatever, but I wouldn't say it aloud.
Right.
So it's quite interesting to see, to use that analogy of this happening. And
Yeah.
and I asked, it was interesting, I asked three of my daughters, two of them said the same as me.
Wow.
And the third one said something like, get off my effing foot.
There you go. Well,
And
she's got a power. Okay.
She's in her power.
Exactly.
There's probably an assertive place in between the anger and the mouse, but anyway.
Sure.
But I just thought it was amazing, and it puts into perspective really our attitudes as we go out there into the world.
Yeah.
And what, I suppose how responsible we are for all that happens, and what we carry when we leave situations. Because that's what I really saw from that question, is the part of me that would carry around the anger that I felt in the moment that I was too polite to express.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So to avoid ever having to go into forgiveness, if only we could express ourselves a little in the moment.
Right. No, you've said, yeah. Sorry. Do you want to say
yeah.
any more?
No, well, you might have a response, because I'm leading somewhere with
Go
this,
ahead.
Where you...
Well, let me finish your thought. Let me finish your thought.
So my thought is, I suppose, because we are in this age of the divine feminine, and
yes, we are.
And I know you speak out as well, Lou, about women are being called, to move into this new place in themselves.
Yeah.
And to
find their voice.
To find their voice, to find their power.
Yeah.
But it's to teach. It's not to overstep the mark and become the same, I suppose, as what we've experienced men to have.
No, we don't want women to be their own version of masculine power run riot. We've had enough of that on the planet. Yeah.
But I can see where this sort of place where if we just start to actually speak our truth.
Right, yes.
Wherever we go.
Yeah.
Kindly.
Yeah.
With compassion.
With love and respect.
With love and respect.
Yeah, but truth nonetheless. Yeah. Well, okay, so there's just, we can do a whole workshop on where you just led us to right there, as far as I'm concerned. This is great, because to come back to women and anger, you see, that you walked right into my little trap there, right? And your daughters too, bless them. And it's not only about...
I've taught them well.
You have done, yes, and you'll teach them well from here on, through your own great example. But it's really, what will you as a woman, how much will you take responsibility for a man's unconsciousness in your life? There you go. See, that's
feel that.
Yes, my friend. Yeah, that's
I'm
the real deal.
Feeling that.
Yeah. And so you see, men are allowed to be angry but can't be sad, and women are allowed to be sad but can't be angry. So that's the mad world that we've all grown up in emotionally. So for you and me, and working together to empower women to find their voice, it's about allowing the anger to be there. And there's a lot to talk about there about women and anger, because all of that has been denied, basically turns within as an attack against one's own sense of worth, you see.
Absolutely,
okay.
Yeah, amen to that.
Right?
Yeah.
At the core, anger says my emotional needs for safety, love, and support are not being met. So when a woman can say, hey, watch where you're going, you drunken idiot, or whatever's necessary, you stepped on my foot, pay attention, ouch, you hurt me. Whatever is the, response, that's her being able to protect herself from other people's unconsciousness. But you see, that's why that story is so revealing, because so many women are trained not to do that.
Yeah, and of course the result of it is, number one, she's no longer carrying, that around with her, any resentment she might have.
Right.
And number two, she's given him the gift of being able to look at something.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
There's an opportunity there. Maybe in his drunken state he mightn't, but generally people respond to, if you say, can you get off me?
Sure.
It just gives them an opportunity to respond rather than to
Sure.
not respond.
Sure. Well, let me just add to that, because that was so powerful. 30 years, over the last 30 years about all this, we're either going to get more conscious or less conscious. Those are the choices. We're either going to move into higher vibrations of greater love and empowerment and responsibility and authenticity and integrity, or less of that, less responsible, less conscious, less caring, et cetera, et cetera.
And we've seen the extremes, of course, of both now.
Exactly. I mean, this is what my guides call the cultural civil war of our time, the clash of the paradigms. And it's happening hugely in the U.S., obviously, but it's happening everywhere. Which is, again, this, see, even the way you said it, was so lovely. Now, but I don't want to be too assertive, Lou, as a woman, and overstep my bounds here. I mean, that was kind of the way you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, you see, women are so disempowered in that way. I mean, you're a great example of someone who is, as a woman, taking back your voice about your feelings, about your worth, about your values, about spirit, about the value of spirituality, all of these things that you've dedicated your life to, and more to come, more opportunities to serve in that way for all of us. You're going here. You're going up the mountain.
But I suppose, a question I have for you that I think will be quite interesting to our viewers, both male and female, is that as this, I suppose, this anger that has been buried, or this rage, and it's our own, but it's also for the collective, is what I'm feeling. Certainly mine feels as if it's been
for the earth,
for everything. And it's how to express it in an let's call it acceptable, because we do,
Well, that's not a great word, but all right.
I'm trying to
in a positive way,
in a positive way,
in an empowering way.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, my experience of rage, and I know other women have shared the same with me, is that for women it kind of erupts. It's quite volcanic.
It has to.
It's there before you know it.
That's right. Yeah, right.
But however, it's still not okay to always direct it.
Well, in all my sessions, I tell every woman I work with, go somewhere and scream.
Yeah,
if this is an
issue.
Yeah, or sing. Just make some noise.
You can't sing and get angry at
exactly.
the same time anyway,
exactly. But it's about like a lot of men are blocked in their hearts in general, because I'm not allowed to grieve or feel or be intimate or be vulnerable or make a mistake or be unprepared or whatever, imperfect, whatever. That cape of shame that we get to wear as men. And then for women, it's the anger, like we're saying, they're blocked in their throat. Oh, I can't say that, I can't acknowledge that, I can't express that, etc. But of course, like you said, it has to go somewhere at some point, because emotion is energy in motion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you. And the other one about that is Carl Jung, who says what you deny within you has to come at you as fate.
Okay.
So it's like we're all walking around this little reality bubble where what we believe, what we say, what we think about, this is Abraham again, what we're focused on, the universe is saying, here, this is what we're getting from you. Are you happy or not?
Yeah, and another one I love is feelings buried alive never die. So, whether they manifest as a physical illness or whatever, but they have to come out.
Yeah.
So I suppose, coming back to that question of the, the anger coming out, I know there's something very positive in the masculine being able to hold space for that.
Sure.
As long as it isn't sort of beyond reason, that when I know I have found myself screaming at Clive when it has little to do. He is just triggered. He's touched a sore
Well, he
place,
gets to be your
he gets to be the
masculine
one
mirror, you see. We get to hold the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. And I suppose I want to say that, if you're a woman and there is a man there that can hold that space for you, wow, you're a lucky woman that won't walk away.
Sure.
Because this is very much part of who we are.
That's right.
This rage in this lifetime now, this has to come out.
Yeah.
It has to come out.
Yeah. So brilliant. Absolutely agree. So the feminine energy from my guides is the emotion and the spirit. And that's always in motion, it's always moving, it's never static, it's alive, it's eternal, it's infinite, etc. Unconditional love. the masculine energy is the mind and the body. It's fixed, it's static, it focuses, it points at things. It says, look at this, look at this, look at this. What does it mean? What does it mean? So together, the garden is the feminine, the gate around the garden is the masculine. As you said, the masculine energy in all of us, men and women, needs to hold the space for the feminine energy to feel safe, loved, and supported. Those are our emotional needs, so that we can know what we're feeling, we can know what we need, we can know what's going on in the world, we can know how to respond to what's happening. So yeah, the world needs, Mother Earth, Gaia, the divine feminine, the indigenous cultures of the planet with all their great wisdom. The world needs, the man, the mind, the will to step aside and let the two be equal together. And I've spent time with the Lakota Sioux and other cultures, and the indigenous culture, when you have a sacred circle, the grandmothers are the first to enter. That's the way it works. Then the grandfathers come in. The women enter, then the men enter.
She initiates, of course. She is the initiation.
She's life.
She's the one who gives
She's the
birth.
gateway of life,
Yeah.
speaking of gateway.
Yeah.
And so the masculine is there to honor and respect her. And when we don't, we see what happens in our world, because we're living, very similar, evidently, to the fall of Atlantis 70,000 years ago. We're living this hyper-technical, masculine, dominator, misogynistic, this is the worst of it all, running rampant and riot, addiction, obsession, compulsion, the mind without any grounding, the will without any heart, the man without, the divine feminine guiding and saying this is important and this is not important. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, see, I got a lot on that one.
And I suppose I'm aware of, Clive is here and you're sitting, the two of you sitting here with me. And I really want to acknowledge that, so many men are waking up to this and so many men are willing. And that's the very fine place now that women have to go into, is to be the teachers of how the divine feminine works. Without blaming, without going to that place of blaming our men for all that was. Expressing the rage and then being willing, I suppose, to teach. And I know recently, Clive said to me, we were having a row about something.
Yeah.
And he said, but I am a product of those times as well.
Sure.
I am a product of that.
Right.
So I have been influenced with that. So I'm acting from that place. But yes, I'm absolutely willing to learn.
Right.
And I know there's a better way.
Yeah.
As
Thank
my
God.
heart is opening and my heart is awakening,
right.
I'm starting to literally feel instead of think.
Yeah.
And some part of me, my gut knows that there is a better way.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said. Just very, very simply, my perception, experience, and belief about all of this is that the vibration, of course, it's being measured scientifically, of the planet itself is going up, 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 up every day. And this is what people call ascension, and this is moving between dimensions and all these kind of things which we can debate and discuss forever. But the bottom line of it is that what has been denied will be confronted and must be resolved. So where we have lied, where we've betrayed, where we've misused, mistreated, disrespected, that is the number one thing that's on the agenda for this planet right now. And you can see it in the culture about women and sexuality and all the stories that are just now rolling out about men that have been abusive of their power and mistreating women in one way or another, and the women are saying we're not having it anymore.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of, Marianne Williamson talks all the time about spiritual activism, and I know Andrew Harvey does as well, and we seem to be really coming into this place where, it's no longer okay to just be sitting at home sort of saying a prayer and, But we really need to start speaking up. And, and not that there's anything wrong with prayer. I'm a great believer in prayer and a great user of prayer.
Yeah.
But there is a time to start taking action and stop sitting in coffee shops talking about how terrible this is how terrible that is.
That's
Did you see this on the news? We really need to wake up and to start doing something about it.
Yes. Well, we are. You and I and Clive are, and the people that would be listening to this, I'm sure, are as well. This is, my teacher Lazarus calls all of us the map makers. and this is the uncharted territory, and we have never been here before. And we are making changes in this lifetime that have never happened in any reality anywhere. This is what Spirit has been saying, and I have no reason to doubt them after all these experiences. So it's the willingness, you see, this is why it's so important for us to listen to, trust, and follow that inner guidance. And the joke from my guides is to act from inspiration rather than desperation.
Okay.
Right? So, you know, one feels good, the other feels terrible. Decide which way you want to live. So, yeah, the good news, again, is that we're remembering that this is possible somewhere deep inside of our hearts. Like you said, you knew you had a mission your whole life, you know. I've heard this, I felt this myself, you know. You hear this from every teacher, yeah, that we're rocking in this world in a whole new way.
Okay, there's so much to integrate there and so much to take in, and it's amazing listening to you, Lou. And as we wind down now, and we're going to leave in a minute, is there any one thing that you'd like to say, or is there any one practice you do that you really believe in that you'd like to share with people, or any suggestions, or, you know, a final message to put out there? Sure.
Well, let's see. Basically that, you know, we do know who we are at the core of our being. And when there isn't the distractions and the pressure and the anxiety and the fear and the drama, we will always come back to that. And what the invitation is calling us towards of these times is to find a path for each of us that works for us. Doesn't have to work for everyone else. And we won't know every step of the journey all the time, but one step at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time, to keep moving in the direction, move slowly and deliberately in the direction of where your heart is calling you, and see what changes. And the best way that we can do that energetically is to give thanks in advance, to bless the situation, the circumstance, the people involved, and to offer it up to the universe for its divine purpose.
With that deep gratitude, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Thank you, dear. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. We do the hug.
Oh, yeah, please.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
And of course, Lou's website will come up on the screens now. And also you can have access to him on his Facebook page, which is just Lou Martin Facebook.
Yes,
we'll put it up anyway, it'll come up.
Yes.
And if you liked this, please subscribe and give us a like and come and watch some more. Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Cheers.